Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Am Christina DiArcangelo. And today with me, I am so happy to have one of my colleagues and now also one of my friends, Anil, on to talk about all these different things that we do at Spectral Analytics Precision Telemonitoring. Welcome, Anil.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you.
Do you want to give our viewers and listeners a little bit of your background, because your background is tremendous, and I usually ask the actual guests to give their background because I never do it justice, and I don't want to read, a CV or a biography, so I usually just hand it back to you.
Sure. I can give a quick introduction about my profile. I have 24 plus years of experience. I started my career in 1998. As a software engineer, and then I worked with a couple of large MNCs, worked in India, US, China, and Japan. And I moved to Canada by 2021. And then I joined with Wipro Americas as a program manager. There I was managing the Airbus account for Wipro. And then in 2015, I started my software consultancy company called Cycloids. And I got the opportunity to work with a couple of very large healthcare corporations like HCA, another digital diagnostics company based out in the US, and a couple of other very large corporations. During my venture at Cycloids. Then eventually, like last year, 2011, Tangential acquired Cycloids. And now I'm part of Tangential. I'm with Tangential as the senior vice president, the strategic growth and the digital division. Yeah.
So we started working together, I don't know, it's probably been almost
end of 2020. That's what
Yep. That's what I was going to say. It's been almost 2 years because we started working together during the pandemic.
When Adler, spoke to me about the concept, right? So he just introduced you to me, right? In 2020, December, I guess, December or November, I guess.
Yep. And
then I thought it's just like another consulting project, right? Then after my first conversation with you, I was surprised. The first time I'm hearing that, the artificial intelligence and the machine learning in the EDC platform, how the clinical trial, and the patients and the physicians and the healthcare industry will be benefited from the machine learning or the AI aspects. The first time, I was hearing that from the clinical trial perspective. I was really impressed and surprised, but, then I got the opportunity to work with you during the last, 2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride because we were working on initially the treatment for COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And that's when we were working with the administration and trying to build out the EDC at the same time for that study, if you recall. Yeah. And then fortunately for us, while everybody was complaining about COVID and how it disrupted industries across the board, we were working on the back end on building this enterprise solution. So that's why quietly we came up pretty fast and had this product offering. First, the electronic data capture, but then obviously electronic patient reported outcomes. Wow, I'll say that 6 times in a row. Those two tools came up really fast because we were able to work in the back end and build out the standards library, if you will, while everybody was complaining. And so when we got our first study, which was not the COVID-19 study, it was actually the diabetic neuropathy study that we're working on together every day of our lives now. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Xylera this morning. I had a quick touch point with them because we just received approval to add the new investigator site into production, if you will, from a clinical trial standpoint. So we're really excited about that. So that system that we built, we're using for that study. And that study has a lot of complexity as it was designed as a traditional pharmaceutical study, even though it's a cannabinoid study.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I think this is one of the first, clinical trial platform, Christina, with the AI and the machine learning aspects, right? So the number of visits and the health parameters and other attributes of the patients through the EMR and through the remote patient monitoring, right? It's all connected. So now everybody is talking about the digital twin, metaverse, and so many other aspects in the healthcare. But you guys started 2 years back.
Yeah.
AI element. I would like to talk about the doctor board as well. Maybe if I get time, I will definitely discuss that point. But this one is definitely will be a value add for all the pharmaceuticals company and the clinical trial practitioners for 100% sure.
And I think also what was smart was that we built in the telemonitoring, where there is a connector between clinical studies and telemonitoring for patients, which no one is doing in the industry right now. And what's really important about that is the fact that if patients are already being telemonitored every day and they join a clinical study, like just pick on the DN study for right now, because we can talk about that in public. If in fact a subject was coming into the study and that subject was having a heart attack prior to seeing the study coordinator, that clinical trial site would automatically know that patient was having a heart attack because of the telemonitoring. So this allows perpetual monitoring outside of clinical trial space, but then also within clinical trial space, there's that availability. Once we turn on the light switch for that, the connector, because we're just finishing up some final stages of programming. But for future clinical studies that we work on, say, for example, with AVUM or some of our other study that we're bidding on right now that you know about, Anil, that, once those studies come to our fruition, to our plate, we will then be able to marry these things together, as well as enact the doctor bot in many of these studies to actually be able to pre-screen subjects, to be able to talk to these subjects, to follow the subjects once they're enrolled. Because one of the most important things, in my opinion, with clinical trials is not just finding those subjects, but retaining them once you find them. That's very hard in clinical study land.
Yeah, finding is also a challenge, Christina, like identify the right patients, right? And the screening, bring them to the screening platform, and it's a monotonous, very long-term process, right? But with your doctor bot, like you basically nailed it out, right? So the Metacrawler bot identify the patients from the social media, right? And then bring to the doctor bot, and then starts the conversation, the real conversation, the pre-screening conversation, and the onboarding or enrollment to the study. So it is completely done. Maybe so any pharmaceutical company can start using it for the patient onboarding aspects, right?
Right. And that's what our goal is. Our goal was that, yes, we do have a sister organization that's a transdermal biotech company, nutraceutical, if you will. And we're doing studies, in that platform for various indications. But our goal as a company and across all of the companies, because there's an ecosystem with having a clinical research organization as a sister company, a nonprofit advocacy firm as a sister company, and then the telemonitoring, everything is patient facing and cycling. So we have a true enterprise that we've built, not just the tech side, but the ecosystem.
Yeah, this is a platform, enterprise platform, right? So once you onboard a patient to the clinical trial through the board, right, then they are part of the telemonitoring. Then they can be part of the clinical study. It's a connected system, right? So they are using the remote patient monitoring through wearables or from the lab data, from different sources. We are aggregating all the health data, the health parameters into the system, and it will be beneficial for the clinical study coordinators and the supervisors and the physicians for sure.
And hopefully we're going to be able to demonstrate, especially with some of these projects that we're going to get, the social impact kind of projects that we're trying to bid on right now, we'll be able to substantiate proof that proactively monitoring patients will reduce healthcare costs and also time away from work and treatments, right? Because if you can be more proactive with their treatments rather than reactive, we can then kind of guide the physicians. Because how many times do people go to the doctors? I mean, I know myself, well, actually, I can't really say this about myself because, I'm an educated patient, but before I was an educated patient, if I'd go to the doctors and the doctor would say, "So Christina, how are you sleeping every night?" I would say, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm sleeping, 6 hours or whatever I think I was sleeping." With our system, the doctors will be able to see noise levels, which are very important. Stress, there's programming that's been done for stress. It goes to ECG ability, oxygen levels, sleep. These are exercise, how many steps you walk a day. All these things are what makes patients who they are today. It's not just what a pill they take or whatever it is that they have to take as far as their treatments are concerned for whatever's wrong with them. It's a whole life cycle. Your wellness and your health is a life cycle. It's not just taking a pill and saying, "Oh, okay, well, I took my pill and that's all I have to do today." It's about exercise. It's about eating properly. It's about getting enough sleep. Prior to all of this, there's doctors really had no visibility. They would just have to believe that what the patient said was happening to them really was, because the Apple data, the Garmin data, the Fitbit data, it's all there within those companies. But what are they doing with that data? Your doctors don't have any connectivity into that data. But with our system, they will have connectivity into that data, because once they come in and see their patients, they see everything, including blood work.
Yeah, exactly. So, So how about the Metaverse concept, Christina? I would like to discuss that with you.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much.
That is the level of telemonitoring. That's what I'm thinking. Telemedicine, telemonitoring, and then, the Metaverse concept in healthcare.
Yeah, this is a big, so, in CD fashion, this stuff just comes into my brain and I'm like, oh, we need to do this because there's a need, right? That's kind of how we built out Spectral, if you will. Every time we were working on something, we were seeing more and more information. A lot of the information that we were able to see was from those COVID long haulers, right? That we were helping with APA. That's how I was figuring out like this, that, all these things kind of married into what we perceived as being a true life cycle for healthcare. So with this, one of the projects that we're hoping that we're going to get, we would be able to work with 6,000 veterans. That's a lot of veterans, right? And veterans
are the social impact project. Right?
Yes. So this would be huge because veterans, as everyone, or maybe people don't know, veterans a lot of times don't have the proper support. Yes, they do have the VA to go to for their healthcare system, and they have physicians that they see. However, a lot of veterans are gun shy, no pun intended, on participating in clinical studies because a lot of times they participate in these things and they see no value add. So what we're trying to do is actually demonstrate through our telemonitoring system, just like we spoke about earlier, Anil and I, that we can actually monitor these patients in a proactive mindset rather than being reactive. So when these patients aren't sleeping well, or maybe they're having a PTS attack, their doctors now don't know when that's happening. They have no idea of knowing. It's not the doctor's fault. They just don't have access to that information. We've created.
Yeah, but at the same time, the digital twin of the doctor, right? That's a virtual avatar, or the metaverse can talk to the patient based on the be captured through all these devices, right? That's the beauty of
the. So what we want to do is create the patient's paradise under the Spectral platform. So what that would mean is we would open it up. It would be branded Spectral, the Affinities, all of our companies would be branded in there. So people would know that they were in our enterprise. They know either the Affinity Bio Partners side or the APA side or the Spectral side or Avum, for example, if they bought our transdermal patches and they have a subscription, we would be able to open up the metaverse for our AVM patients as well, that room looks like AVM. So those patients that come in are AVM subscribing patients. For the social impact study, we will be able to open this up, this metaverse, for their physicians, for the veteran team that's going to be working on this project alongside APA, Affinity Bio Partners, and another one of our partners that's working on this project that I can't say out loud who they are because of the way our contract's written. I'm not allowed to disclose who they are. But so all of us will come together. We're going to be able to do education for these patients, rolling educational events. When we onboard them, Anil, into Spectral Tele-Monitoring, it's no longer on the phone, so antiquated, no longer on a Zoom. No, none of that. Now they'll show up to our metaverse. They'll get in, and one of us will be there. One of either the APA people, the Spectral people, the Affinity Bio, it depends who's in there working on the project when. They will come in and they'll onboard patients in real time into the system so that they'll be able to see these things. We'll be able to group teams together because it's some respects, it's competition, this wellness program. How much exercise? I mean, these are veterans. Of course, they're competitive by nature. Look what they did. They defended our country how many years, of service. They're very competitive. So let's use that spirit of competition to our benefit from a wellness perspective. So I'm really excited about this because this is very much cutting edge, that we're doing this, because I'm not aware of anybody else that's doing this unless you correct me, Anil.
Yeah, right. This is the first time in the industry, right? The patient's paradigms, right? That's a big knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the first time in the healthcare industry for sure. And at Tangentia, under digital, we are planning to build a complete healthcare division, to support spectral projects, your boards, and all the the different patient onboarding, EDC, telemonitoring, and the different aspects, the cannabis-based pain management systems, and all. Like we already worked with video,
yes,
the VIP project. So it is really growing really quickly. So we decided to build the healthcare practice team with all the compliances, the HIPAA compliances, PII compliance and standards and all. So that's a focus for Q3 and Q4 in 2022 at Tangentia. That's another initiative from the management.
Which is awesome. I mean, I love the collaborative nature of our partnership. I mean, It was prior, because I was working with you when you were cycloids prior to becoming Tangentia. And then once Tangentia, the cycloids team merged into Tangentia, then we just had more resources to our project and a bigger net, if you will, of people who could work on projects that are brilliant. Working with bots, that's a different skill set in its entirety. Working in the metaverse, this is very new. This is ever evolving. And not many people are requesting these types of services yet. So I'm excited that we're thinking ahead and that we listen to what's going on out there. We listen to our patients. We try to keep things as cost beneficial as possible. Patients don't pay to have access to our telemonitoring system. It's whoever it is that contracts with us directly. So for the social impact project, it would be those parties that we're working with, that we're performing the studies for. The same thing with the diabetic neuropathy study. The biotech company is sponsoring that study. They're paying for it. So that's how these patients are getting access to the system. And I think that's important, because a lot of times in clinical study land, this, Anil, you've been around this block for a long time, working on some notable EDC platforms in your career as well, is that a lot of times people don't think about the patients. They're secondary rather than being primary, in my opinion.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and what is the timeline in your mind, Christina, for the patient's paradise?
Well, I'm giggling because, I want it as soon as possible. So I know that we're going to hear back regarding the first project within the next week or two. Okay. I spoke with the team late last week before I left for my quick birthday trip to Miami. And so I was talking to them, right up until I left. And I have a meeting with them this week to go over final numbers. Our stuff has already been fully vetted. What we are going to discuss has been already prepped. So now it's just getting the other team hooked into the main part of the work that we did. Because, most of the work is off of our work, whether it's talking to the veterans, identifying the patients through the Meta, opening up the platform to be able to receive data through EDC, ePro, and telemonitoring. And then we want the Patient's Paradise launched. So, or at least the first version of it. It's not going to be fully operational the first time, but as long as we have a platform for people to go into, we could always continue to improve, just like we did with the platform when we launched the EDC and the ePro. We're constantly seeing things, figuring out things to do better, faster, and smarter, I think, right?
Yeah. And another important aspect. So we had a conversation with Microsoft recently, and then we explained the Spectral, roadmap for the next 5 years, all the different aspects of telemonitoring, the metaverse and all. They are super excited, and then they are ready to onboard Spectral in their pilot startup kind of concept in the healthcare, exclusively US. So they will announce that soon.
That is amazing. And we're working on trying to get a big Canadian deal, right? Which would hook really nicely into Tangentia headquarters being in Canada, which is one of the things that I said to the investor. I said, listen, yes, we are a US company, Avum, Spectral, the affinities. However, our programming team is located HQ is in Canada, and they have office all over the world, obviously, New York and everywhere, metropolitan cities based. So they were very excited about this because when they invest in this project, it's almost like they're investing back into Canada, so to speak, a little bit, because you guys are in Canada. So this is it's just really awesome that everything that we've been waiting for is finally starting to come to fruition, because what we've said this platform can do, it's doing what we said it could do with some of the studies we're already running. So people are seeing we're not lying, we don't have this shell system. It's really working.
That's for the First Nations in Canada, right?
That is correct. Yep.
It's the same group, the social impact for veterans?
No, it's a different group altogether. Mm-hmm.
Okay, mm-hmm. Very good.
It's two big, large groups. I mean, the first one, the veterans, it could go up to 20,000 patients potentially. That's what we may end up having clearance for. And then the other side, I mean, it'll be well over 20,000 patients, right? Because it's across the entire community. And other sister and brother tribes, if you will, want to be involved as well with them, because they see what we're going to be doing together, and they want that for their tribe members as well, and the patients within their network.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We have a lot of stuff that's coming up, Anil. Like it's.
And one more thing, for the interest of my audience, right? Could you please, brief your profile, in the clinical trial space? I think it's a very, very rare profile you have, right?
Oh,
I know that.
Thank you so much. So I have been in biotech pharmaceuticals globally now for 24 years. I just turned 24. I've worked on 25 FDA approved drugs and devices in my career. The last 5 years, I've been in the nutraceutical space. So for that, I mean cannabinoids, right? The whole cannabinoid space. But I also worked on hair products like Nutrafol, for example, which has been approved and everybody's buying right now. Eclipse, I worked with them on their hair regrowth product as well, their actual topical as well as the pills. So I got into the aesthetic space a little bit prior to getting into the nutraceutical space. So I've been doing this globally for a really long time. I started really young in my career.
I see you're wearing multiple hats. Like at the same time, you're a clinical trial practitioner, advisor, and a product manager for the clinic. I mean, the Spectral EDC and the clinical telemonitoring software. Like it's how do you manage all these different roles at the same time? How do you prioritize?
Oh, it's so hard at times. I have ADHD, as you know, right? So I use that to my benefit because my brain fires fast in multiple ways, multiple times a day. So that's why I can get so much done, honestly. So people that have ADHD shouldn't feel embarrassed by it, because you can, like my son has it, as you know. So I tell him, embrace it, Christian, because look at all the things you could do in one time, in one day. You can accomplish so much more than everybody else, because that's how your brain works. So I check that box off. Like that's part of one of my benefits, I guess, of having ADHD. But what I do is, patients come first, right? So if I've been on calls with you where I've had to be delayed coming on because a patient called through APA. So if a patient calls through the nonprofit, I have to stop and answer the phone because they call me. They don't call an answering service. I don't want patients to call, a cell phone. I want them to call me directly so that I can start the process. So when those patients call, that's number one. Then obviously I float into the clinical trial space, right? So right now we have the DN study on. So we have enrollment, right? We have 24 patients enrolled. We have 10 pre-screens for group 2 to start, hopefully next week, because Ty's been approved now by the IRB. So that'll be 34 patients in, and then we need 60. So we've got to finish out the enrollment. We're close. We're very close to getting the rest of them. So I have to prioritize my paying attention to that study to make sure we have these patients coming in, that they're screened in properly, that we don't have a ton of screen failures, because right now we don't have any. We've been very lucky, but that's because of the screening process. But then, then to switch over to the tech side, when there's things that we're working on that's tech related, that's priority because of moving projects forward, I kind of have to then go over to that side and focus on that. So I kind of just divide my day out every day, all day long. How about yourself? I mean, you work on a million different projects. We're not the only one that you work with.
So basically, I focus on the priority, right? I divide the time into 3. Like, I work with the new customers, during the first half of the day. And then, so we have a very good product engineering team. So now it's like, I believe in delegation, right? So we have a very good, the digital practice head in India, the program manager, we know that, team, if they are doing their job well, then we can focus more on the, the other aspects, like building new accounts, design the product engineering aspect, introduce that to the new customers and all. So that's how I manage. I believe in delegation.
Yeah. And you empower your team. You do a really awesome job, because I've seen you do this on multiple calls that I'm on with you, because it's kind of like you and I are peanut butter and jelly. I always refer to Dr. Donner as that, on the clinical aspect side of things, like we're peanut butter and jelly when we're working on studies together. As you know, he's working on the DN study with us now. So it's usually you and I here. And then we talk to the team, and then the team, we have Tiffany on our side, who's amazing. She has a tech background, which I don't have. So, I know some people are like, wait a minute, you don't have a tech background, but you're CEO for a tech company. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a tech background. I just know what needs to be done. And I could talk with people like you guys who orchestrate, how to program to get what I need to get out.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
And I think that that's what works really well in our team, is the fact that we openly admit things that we can't do as a team, right? So that's why we tap other resources within our team, because you and I can't do everything. That's why we have a team of a whole bunch of people that can come together and orchestrate what it is that we need done.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to thank you so much today for joining me, Anil. It has been a pleasure to have you on to talk about some of the amazing things. We've been waiting to have you on because we were waiting to a point where we had a good amount of things to talk about because there were so many things that were going on that we couldn't talk about that.
Touched, like we discussed only a couple of points, right? So many points we haven't even touched. Right?
That's right, because I figure what we'll do is once we launch the metaverse, our patient's paradise, we'll come back on again, and maybe we'll bring a couple people from the Tangentia side as well as we'll bring Tiff on, so that way everybody sees the team, like the key leaders of the team, talking about what we did and why we did what we did and why it was so important and how it ended up being what it looks like, at that time, whatever it ends up being.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thanks excited
for inviting me, and it's my pleasure. Yeah. So we had a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And like we always say, in every one of our podcasts, remember, we are the same. I am Christina DiArcangelo. Thank you.